Good morning and welcome to this breakfast session. My name is Henri Kuusla and I represent Maria01. Since 2017, Konecranes has been a part of the Maria01 community, exploring new ways to partner and co-create together with startups, to find new solutions that might even disrupt whole industries. During the short history of Maria01, Konecranes has already assessed many opportunities and run proof-of-concept cases with Maria01 startups. Due to this, we thought that they would have some valuable learnings to share to the Maria01 community. Together with Konecranes, we create a guidebook gathering their learnings on this journey so far. The guidebook is downloadable and the link to downloading it can be found from the description. So what happens next? We will have Jussi Eskelinen and Ville Hoppu from Konecranes telling us about the key takeaways regarding the guidebook, followed by a fireside chat between Konecranes and a Maria01 in-house startup, Robonomist. Without further ado, let's welcome Ville Hoppu from Konecranes.
Good morning, everybody. Like Henri mentioned, I'm Ville, partnership manager at Konecranes, and my job is to bring startups and let's say external technology companies together with Konecranes. I'm building the connection, building bridges, so to say, and kind of maintaining and nurturing that we have a good communication and connection with the companies. Konecranes, what we do, we are a company about lifting businesses, and this is what we do every day. And why we are here today is, let's say, simply put, open innovation. So Konecranes is, if you think of us, those of you who already know us, you might have seen our logo on kind of a beam of something heavy that is lifting something heavy. So imagine, for instance, a cruise vessel. You need something to build those huge things, and we build the things that are used to build those huge things. So kind of hardcore engineering company. But we are also an innovation company and a technology company, since everything is digital nowadays, as you know. We need solutions to manage, to engineer, to optimize, and also, you know, once something is going on, we are looking at the data, trying to understand what's going on, trying to improve. So all of that is digital. It's, you know, nothing to do with the steel and the wires and the ropes. And that's why we work with you guys. We want to work with you and other companies like yourselves. And it's quite natural that we partner up with Maria and these kinds of communities, because this gives us a great access to a lot of good companies, and it gives an access, kind of, makes us, puts our finger on the pulse, but also really practically, it's pretty convenient to have the Slack access to, you know, all of you, and likewise, you will find me on Slack as well. So no barriers in between. It's really convenient. Why we do this with Maria? It's quite natural. Our home is here. It's really easy and straightforward to work with Maria. We also collaborate with other let's say communities like this, but not on the scale as we're here. So this is definitely our main partner. Then practical things that we do together. For instance, we have a program called Accelerator, which is aimed for Konecranes employees. But we do that, we facilitate it with Maria, so we get the guest speakers, the mentors, and the coaches from the Maria community. So that's really valuable for us. And like mentioned, that we also want to bring some value to your community, and kind of, this is one way to do it, to kind of communicate that what are the learnings that we've had on that kind of stuff. And let's say that for the introduction of this session, or the kind of main reason for being here in the guidebook, I will ask Jussi to come on stage and tell a few words about that. Welcome, Jussi.
Thank you, Ville. Thank you, Henri. And thank you for people coming here. So happy to see so many of you here. I started this day and I look at the news and to be honest, I didn't know are we gonna have to call rescue club to rescue these foods away, but happy to see so many of you here. So to start off the introduction to the guidebook itself, I want to ask you a question that how many of you have struggled to kick off or strike a deal or just land a customer from a corporate? At least one hand. Oh, now there's more. That's super. So it means that perhaps our guidebook is creating some value here in the community, and that's the main purpose that why we did it. So my background in Konecranes is actually that I started to, kicked off this collaboration with Maria01. I systemized how we work with startup companies, launched this REACH program that we have running in Konecranes, and right now my responsibility is to lead this so-called outside-in perspective implementation to Konecranes. That means startups, that means customers, etc. And some of the key takeaways we have learned so far, obviously Konecranes has been working with small and large companies since we were spun out of Kone from '94. But there's definitely the learnings that we have gotten over the past 4 years or so are something that we decided with the Maria team that we should be telling the world and especially to the Maria01 community that you guys represent. So first being that whenever you start to work with a corporation or small or large companies, obviously that even though it might be really tempting to just do something, it pays quite a lot of value to pinpoint what is the problem that you're solving both for yourselves and the corporations, and what is the value that you're going to capture there. And the key benefit of doing that is obviously to know that what somebody is going to pay to who. And this is pretty critical in terms of when two organizations work, because usually there's some sort of a transaction there, unless you are in a business that is something like moving all the time without money. The second being is that the expectation management. And this is something that you should definitely push corporations to handle. So it's really easy to everybody be in their own, let's say, little minds and expect or implicitly just think that some magical way we're going to agree. That's not going to happen. So the key is to have the right difficult conversations as early as possible, because later you're going to have them, more time you're going to waste, both from your side and also from the corporation. The third being is the people, quite naturally. So people who are in your team, people who are in the corporate side of the team. Are these the people who have any idea what it means to work in a startup? Are these the people who have any idea to work and make the influence within the corporation happen, so that you actually are going to go to all the way and actually complete, for example, a contract or procurement order? So these are the people you want to look from the corporations to start with and challenge them in the right way. And finally, when you close to the topic of, obviously making an agreements, getting some purchase orders in, it's really easy to fall into the trap of zero-sum negotiations. So this means that you start to think that what the corporation is going to gain is something that you're going to lose. And especially the corporation side, when the discussion circulates around a variety of stakeholders, so these stakeholders start to think that why this startup is going to get this and we're going to get that. So this is what the zero-sum negotiation does, and with the respect to the startups and corporations, it means that both are going to lose. There's no such a thing as winners and losers, there's just losers, losers, or winners, winners. And those are the 4 key takeaways from the actual guidebook. There's quite a lot of stuff there too, and we're really happy to share more about the topic. And obviously before doing that, perhaps have the fireside chat with the gentleman from Robonomist. So thanks from my behalf, and please welcome.
My name is Otto Lausmaa. I'm from Robonomist, the co-founder of the company, and my own background is in economics in Helsinki University, and I've been doing stuff with data and data analytics, mainly the exploitation of the data on the business side as my career.
Yes, hi. I'm Juha Itkonen, and I'm the second co-founder of Robonomist, and I'm also have a background in economics. I have a PhD in environmental economics, and used to work at the central bank forecasting the Finnish economy and doing different kind of digitalization stuff there, and now working with Konecranes, among other things.
Thanks. Tell also that what does Robonomist do?
Yeah, we produce data. We provide with data analytics, and automatization as a service for companies. We produce scalable software robots for the data analytics pipelining and for the automatization. And we also do a lot of forecasting, prediction modeling, advanced analytics.
Great. Okay. So perhaps we start kind of putting things together, and maybe Jussi, you could tell why we have engaged with Robonomist and a little bit of what we've done together.
Yeah, that sounds good. So we have built together, co-developed together a forecasting algorithm, to say, which is now operated by Konecranes in this kind of metered funding milestone fashion. So throughout the 1 year, we have completed, let's say, a process entailing 5 different phases and completing all of those with the team Robonomist. Actually, we met at that table, and this is the second time we meet face to face.
When was that?
I would say pretty exactly 1 year ago. Was it December 2020?
Yeah.
Roughly, or November. So we had a problem, and we tried to solve it by ourselves. And one of the first things, obviously, when you have this kind of data-intensive problem, it perhaps makes sense, even with the great data scientists that Konecranes have, is to seek outside and look that maybe somebody else has thought about this more. And pretty interesting topic was that even though we, as a company, always go, let's say, global by finding solutions, it was a sort of quite an interesting coincidence that, well, Robonomist happened to do exactly what was our problem solving requiring, and you were based in Maria. And yeah, it was definitely a quick intro there. So I pulled out the Slack and searched who is working in Robonomist, and we agreed to lunch here. And maybe 8 days after that, the contracts were finalized, and we started the project within a few weeks or so. And obviously, we started so that the vision was to go all the way and build this solution, but I really liked what we did. So it was pretty agile and exploratory in a way that we just set the first, was it 3 weeks or so, and yeah, started to build the solution in this kind of quite a frugal way. How was it in your side?
I'm happy to say that this experience with Konecranes has been really comfortable. So, talking about collaborating with large corporations, it's good that we have had a partner that has so much experience working with startups. So, in all, it has been a really positive experience, and I can say that, you know, in the beginning, I sort of noticed that you had this kind of a certain protocol of working on stuff. I don't mean it was like uncomfortable or anything like that, but it was maybe you could say it was a bit seemed a bit fuzzy, you know. But as our collaboration proceeded, you really noticed that there's like a reason for all of this, and down the road it really helps stuff. So when we started, we didn't have this guidebook yet. So now afterwards, reading it, you sort of notice that there's a sort of science behind it and experience that has led to this kind of way of doing things. So I think we were really fortunate in this, that having a experienced partner.
Yeah, exactly as you have said, and I would also like to add that it's always hard to manage the expectation for our customers, and it's really nice to see when our customers do it by themselves, and it's built in the process, because it normally takes a lot of work for us to align the expectations.
Yeah, exactly, because when we are sort of exploring new technology and possibilities, it has a lot of inherent uncertainty there. So in the beginning, we really didn't know whether there's going to be a product, whether it's going to be a one-phase thing, or is there potential to proceed. So a lot of uncertainty that's sort of unavoidable. So managing these expectations is something, a source of uncertainty that you don't want to add to that. So I think being open and talking about the potential and possibilities and risks involved, and sort of concrete ideas that what could be possible, what's a small thing to do, what's a large thing to do, how long it's going to take, how much uncertainty there is with that assessment, things like that. It's really good to be open and talk about these things.
That's good to hear, and of course the case with you guys was special. Hopefully all the cases are special, but there was a clear need and then a good process, to find a way to satisfy the need. And yeah, just being lucky that you were here, because you could have been anywhere in the world. So that's pure luck. Some call it luck, some call it something else, but if you make yourself be able to be lucky, then you will be. I don't know how to say that in English, but that's a bit of the point there. You've read the guidebook, so any kind of what kind of reflection does it give you, and do you kind of identify situations with previous examples or experiences somewhere else?
I can pick on this topic that you mentioned, that we sort of had this solution, or at least expertise on this problem that you had. It was very sort of specific match, sort of a perfect match. I think, if I brag a bit, I think there's not another company that could have done this. Same thing, but still, it's only a sort of a technological match, and sort of finding the value and matching the value also is very important, and it's one of the topics in the first topic in this book. And I think this was something that we sort of iterated quite a lot in the beginning to find what is exactly the market value, how will we monetize this idea. So I think we saw the potential. It was very clear that we can do it, or at least test this idea, and you had a very specific idea to test, but who will be the one paying for it in the end, how it will be made into a product and put into the market. This was something that required quite a lot of discussion.
All right, great. Should we check if the audience has any? It would be nice to hear from you guys. Any reflections based on if you've seen the guidebook already. Any comments or thoughts that you would have, or questions to either us or Robonomist?
Yeah, thank you for being here. I have one question concerning where I see the difficulty between cooperating with big companies and we as a startup, and maybe Maria can help with this, or an ecosystem like that, or maybe even you with your guidebook. I haven't read it yet, but one question I have is like, we don't have like legal resources, and for us it is always like, do we just kind of like make a little cooperation based on trust, then nobody has to deliver, which makes it very easy for somebody to say, yeah, now let's move on and look at it next year, something like that. While creating a deal and signing a deal will create urgency, but then I have the problem that I deal with corporate lawyers who can totally screw me over. So what is the kind of, is there some help available for that?
Yeah, that's a super good question, and that's the first challenge that in 2017 we decided to tackle, because you're absolutely right. The way how traditional corporation procurement process goes is to procure at the lowest possible cost at the best possible terms for that corporation, because usually those corporations buy from another corporation. And in case of startup, the matter of fact is that quite often, as you know, these terms and conditions that some of the contracts have, if those would be realized, the startup would cease to exist. So the whole point of having these sort of contracts kind of loses the meaning. However, the issue is that if the corporation that you're about to deal with hasn't had realized that, then what is my tip is for you to help them realize this problem. Like really openly say that, guys, if I hire a external consultant as a lawyer, external legal advisor, it's going to cost me 1,500, 2,500 per day. Well, it's going to take us perhaps 10 iterations, and that external advisor is going to make that external advisor valuable, so make a lot of stupid comments. And that's going to extend the process even further. And that's going to cost you, I don't know, 10K to 30K just to sign the contract. And you don't want to do that. And you don't want to either put that cost into the actual cost of your product or services that you offer. And then the final point that you can say to the corporation that if I sign this as it is, and if these terms actually happen, our company doesn't exist anymore. So if you just say it how it is, and look what the other party does. I don't know, have you tried that? But that's what I told to our legal team. And that starts to change things. But here is the thing is that these people doesn't necessarily know that. They're just doing their job. I don't know, have you tried to say it how it is?
Probably I did, but I don't know if I understood.
Okay, cool. Well, then it's repetition.
Yeah, I'd say that this is a good advice. Is put it on the table. Say that, look, these are the consequences. Like, we need to add the cost, or whatever it's going to be. But this is also our approach is to just tell openly what are you afraid of. What are the risks from your side. And this doesn't apply just to kind of small companies. It's all the contracts and the negotiations they are doing. It's just put it openly, like saying that, my biggest risk in this deal is that I lose all my money, or my investor is going away, or, I commit to something that I cannot deliver unless, if it's so. And then you ask them that what is the risk on your side? Like what are you afraid of, or what do you need? Because the contracts are kind of risk management tools. So what are you managing? What are the risks that you see here? It's all usually it's about money, or in big corporations it usually is reputation also, because the one key problem, like we are a big company, we build things that are lasting for, like they are built for 20 years or 25 years, those machines. And the kind of perception from our side is always that, okay, now if we're bringing a product to the market, it has to survive 50 years or 100 years or whatever. So it's kind of, sometimes we are overexhausting ourselves about that. How are we going to support this? But that's really important for companies like ours. Like, we have to be confident that when we bring out a feature or a product to the market, that we are actually able to maintain and support it. And then contracts are just needed there. But I have a kind of a leading question that perhaps to Henry, you have the microphone in your hand. So, what is your, like Maria? Do you have services? How can you support startups on this legal side?
Well, of course. So we have these legal partners, and of course not just legal, but we have different type of services, and the kind of sole reason behind that is, as Ville and Jussi and this question described, startups are somewhat unique. You cannot take the same approach as with corporations, and we only want to partner with people that we know that they understand what's the environment of the startup. Understand that they cannot do those 300 euro consultancy hours from the beginning because it's just not viable. And that there's always a person, when you contact them, you know that there's a person who knows that you're from Mare01 and kind of you're a startup. So we have those services, and you can find all of those from the Mare members portal and members.maria.io.
Yeah, I'd say that you cannot avoid it completely, but when you can minimize it and kind of just focus it to stage by stage, right? So that in the beginning, keep it as lean as possible, and actually all the way keep it as lean as possible. That's also another advice we would give.
And obviously, last point is that, without knowing the numbers, without knowing what is the actual business in this case, it is sometimes it's an extremely good sign that hey, we're taken seriously. And obviously, if there is a high risks there involved, then sometimes some of those quite tedious clauses are needed, and they show that okay, I'm being taken seriously here.
Yes. As a startup, I can really relate on this problem, and it's sort of obvious that in legal matters we're the underdog here, and we cannot afford to argue legally on these matters, and there's not much leverage. So basically, the one thing you can do is decline the offer in the end. Say that we're not going to do it, or it will cost you. If there's too much legal risk involved, so we have to sort of be compensated for that. We have to put more hours into the contract, so we can be sure that we can deliver in the end. And so I think this is one part of being open, but it's good to be also very sort of specific. If there's one certain point that will ruin your own company, if things go bad in the end, so you can say that okay, we need to change this. This means our destruction. So if this is here, we're not going to take the offer, or it will cost you quite a lot, and then you can negotiate on this openly. So it's from the startup's point of view, it's really difficult to try to be more cunning in these legal matters. So like buy your own legal counsel and make a bulletproof contract or something like the mega corporation will win in the end.
Yeah, and when we started to work and the first meeting, I knew that all right, we want to start fairly quickly, and again, expectation management. So I told Juha and Otto that we have a pretty standard template. We're going to make it look so that you can probably sign it. Please read it. We can discuss about it. But if we have to change something, it's gonna take a month. And the way how we went there is, and how we have created these contracts with startups, at least from our side, this is definitely not all the possible corporations. We do contracts which are possible to understand without a legal advisor, and also we know that this contract actually is a contract, so it can be signed. And if it's some of those clauses are enforced, then it might mean that even a company like Robonomist wouldn't go bankruptcy. But yeah, it's a tough problem, and it's not about that much about the startup. It's more about unfortunately the corporation, and that's about actually one of the key takeaways that I forgot in my opening was that finding great partners is not rocket science. So these kind of telltale signs tell you that which customers you want to invest your time and efforts.
Great, a vivid discussion. So any thoughts or questions from the audience? Somebody in the back.
Thank you. I'm on the other side, on the corporate side, and we are in, unfortunately, energy tech, hardware, so things get a little bit more complicated. So my question to you, Konecranes, you're also doing hardware stuff. So when you, purchasing agreement, yay, digital, nice. But when you go, let's say, to core development for the startup on the hardware side, so then it kind of adds complexity, right? You have the background IP or front-end IP, blah, blah. And then like the legal stuff is more complicated. So what are your experiences and how to make that side easier?
That's an excellent question. So we have had some wins and some losses in this area. And you're right that this is more complicated. There's more dependencies. The development cycles are far more costly and far more long. And it just means that everything, even in a company like ourselves where we put effort, it's slower, it's more complicated. And knowing that you mentioned background IP and foreground IP and residual knowledge, etc. Yeah, you know the struggle. And how to mitigate that, it is still so that there has to be a person. So in our company, it's Ville Hoppu, who is holding the grip and obviously rooting for the team Konecranes, but more so for the collaboration and making this happen. But I would say that in this case, the emphasis has to be on the people, and that sort of whoever is driving that from the corporation side has to have a certain level of credibility to make stuff happen. And there's no direct route around that, especially when we talk about hardware products which combine the software and at best some sort of an algorithm development, and that's really complicated.
It is tricky, and we just happen to have a case like that going on at the moment, and it has taken a long time, and it's not going to be finished next week either. Exactly these things that you both are mentioning here, and I'd say that two key things are the sponsor, like you mentioned. You need somebody who has the power to say that yes, we're gonna do it, and then you need a bit of time, and that brings you the experience that once you've done it, or when you've done it once, you're much better off. First time is difficult. Like we've been doing collaborations for a number of years, but what we're doing now is the biggest in scale and the most complicated. Just like mentioned, there's hardware, software, who's supporting, who's owning, like what do we do if the startup fails. So it's a significant investment from our side. We see the business value there, but yeah, it just takes a lot of time because we have a big group of people within Konecranes. There's a lot of people involved who have some sort of a responsibility of some part of the process, and we have to engage a lot of people. But I'm confident that once we get this one through, then we have a template. And again, this is just that when you've done it at least once, you're so much further off than doing it for the first time. So experience matters. But if you don't start, you're never going to do it. So, so probably the kind of motivation and the drive, which means also the people with the mindset that we need to do this, we want to do this, that's key. If you're missing that from the top management, then probably it's not going to happen. All right, we can have one more question from the floor, and then here we go.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for the presentation. It's interesting. I read from the guide that you strongly suggest that people should have experience both from startups and corporates, and it creates value. Just that question: has it happened during your careers in Konecranes? Have people changed jobs from startups to corporates or vice versa?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, we have, glad to say, hired people from startups, and people from Konecranes have left 2 startups. I don't recall a person by name who has left from Konecranes to startup and came back to Konecranes. So that kind of colleagues are more rare. And this is the key reason that why in 2017 we decided to partner up with Maria01, is that here we have a, let's say, space to put our people into startup-like environment just for the enough time in order to make sense of the world. And well, your question is sort of the answer is we have from one way, but not back and forth, and that's the reason why one of the reasons why we partnered up with Maria01 back in some years ago.
Yeah, maybe kind of explaining the thought of having experience. It doesn't mean that you should hire anybody, but just have an advisor or an advisor at least from the other side, unless you are familiar by yourself. All right, great. I think we have spent our time here. Thanks people for showing up. Thanks for Robonomist for talking with us this morning, and thanks obviously Maria, Henry, Jessica, Ville, and Para for setting this up. It's been nice, and now I'm hungry.
Yeah, thanks everybody. There's definitely Team Robonomist that you came here, and obviously to all of you, I really sincerely thought that there's going to be 0 to 1 persons here, but it's a pleasure to be here. So let's have a great week, and happy Christmas and happy New Year.
So there you have it. Thanks for tuning in to this breakfast session. We hope you found it insightful. Download the guidebook for concrete learnings which you can implement in your next collaboration.